Alright guys, we're on day 3 of our light painting video, and we are getting pretty close to done. Let's just get our projects open up in Photoshop. Remember, when you add a project you've already started, you don't open your project now by clicking on Add Media and loading it up that way. You don't want to do this. Since we've already started our project and saved it, we're actually just going to go to File, Open, and we're going to open that up, our project that way. I've already got mine open, so just make sure you do it that way, File, Open. If you add media, then all your images will be molded together into one clip, and you won't be able to do any of the editing. You should have finished adjusting the time of all your clips to be 8 frames long, like we did in yesterday's video. And now we are going to go through and just clean up our slideshow and really just make it look a little bit better. The first thing I want you to do is press Control-R on your keyboard to get these rulers right here that you see along my screen here, along the top and the bottom. We want those to show up, and I'm going to show you why. We're going to use these to kind of clean up and make our slideshow flow a little bit better. Let me show you what I mean by that. I want to make sure that when my title comes in, that it's not bouncing around too much. So I'm actually going to go to the very end of my title, to my very last slide, which is right there. And I'm going to come up here to these rulers along the top and the bottom, and I'm going to pull. I'm just clicking and dragging right here, right on the ruler, just click and drag, and I can pull a line out and put it right down there at the bottom, and I can pull another line out, put it right there on the top, and you can see I'm putting it right up against my text. And I'm also going to do the same thing over here, click and drag, put one right along the side there, click and drag, and put another one on that side. And this is the box that I want my text to fit in, and as long as it more or less fits inside this box, then I know I've done a pretty good job. So now I'm going to just start going back through some of my other clips and seeing if they fit inside this box. So you can see this one doesn't quite fit. It's a little tall. So I got a couple of different options. I can either grab the old Move tool and I can just move it so that it does fit. Keep in mind, don't forget that anytime this kind of stuff shows up right here, this gray and white checkerboard, that's going to just turn black when we export our video when we're all done. So we don't have to worry about that at all. The problem is now the bottom of my text doesn't quite fit in here either, and that's okay too. I'm going to show you how I would fix that. Let me get the top to fit, and then what I'm going to do to fix the bottom is I'm going to do the Control-T. I'm going to use Free Transform. Remember, to get Free Transform to work, you have to not only be on the clip, you have to have the playhead on the clip, but you have to also be clicked on the clip as well. I'm going to press Control-T on my keyboard, and I know that I've told you 1,000 times to never do this, but I'm going to let you this time for 2 reasons. One, this is just hand-drawn text. Nobody's going to know that it's been stretched out. And 2, it's just text. If we had a person in this image, we can't do this. If we have people in the photo, we have to hold down Shift and drag from the corner. But since we don't, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm just going to come down here and I'm going to grab this. I'm going to just squeeze that image so it fits inside of there, just like that. And I'm going to go ahead and bring this side in too, so that the L fits in there, and I'm going to go ahead and press Enter to do that. And I'm just going to keep working my way through my title, going through each one, grabbing the Move tool. Do yourself a favor, make sure this Auto Select is checked right here, and just moving it so it fits inside the box. And then if I need to, this is pretty close. It probably doesn't need to be done, but I would do it anyways. Do a little Control-T and just kind of stretch this thing in there so that it fits right inside my lines. And that's going to clean up my title by going through and doing that to every one of my images in my title. Unfortunately, there's no quick and easy way to do this. We can't adjust all of them at the same time because they're all going to need to be in a little bit different spot. So I'm just going to go through each slide and keep working on this. And go ahead and pause the video and you start doing the same. Alright, I've got all my slides lined up pretty well, but I want to show you a little bit more advanced technique. You'll notice in my final slide of the fall, my L's are right about here. But in the one right before it, they're off a little bit. And if I'm being really particular and I really want my slideshow to look good, I'm going to fix that too. And let me show you how I'm going to do it. I'm going to put the playhead over that clip, and I'm going to click on that clip. I'm going to come up here and grab my lasso tool, the same tool that we used yesterday. And I'm going to draw a lasso around the 2 L's. I'm going to be careful to include that little light burst right there because that's part of the L. So I'm going to include that. I'm just going to come around and select all the way around here. Careful not to select any of the other letters. And now I'm going to do Control-T but I'm going to do it just on the what is selected. And Photoshop will do that automatically for me. If I have a selection and I do Control T, you can see it selecting just those letters. And I can either click and move those, I can rotate them, I can resize them, stretch them out however I need to. And remember, these gray and white boxes, those are all going to disappear later. Those are all going to be filled in with black later on. So I think that seems about right where they should be. Let's go ahead and press enter on that. I'm going to leave my selection around that for just a second and check my other ones, and that looks pretty good. It's not, again, not an exact match, but I don't really care. I'm pretty happy with the way that looks. I can use that exact same technique right here. This F, to me, is not in the right spot. Remember, it's supposed to be along the bottom here. I'll just grab my lasso tool, draw a selection around it. Ooh, my mouse isn't working very good. Let's try that again. F, draw a selection around the F, Control T it. And again, because it's just text, I can stretch it out a little bit. I can move it down a little bit. And again, I'm not going to worry about this gray and white because that's all going to disappear later on. It's not going to be that big of a deal. So use that technique to get your title looking pretty darn good, and then we'll go on from there. All right, let's go to a much later spot in the movie here. You can see what I've got here is a little magic hole in the ground that a tree is going to grow out of. But the problem is the spot that the tree is growing out of is moving around all over the place. And to make my slideshow look good, I want that to stay in the same spot. So I'm going to go with this last frame where it is when he leaves the image, the movie. And I'm going to grab my move tool again, and I'm going to move these bars around, and I'm going to put them kind of right here above and below it, and then again outside of it to kind of surround it. And if I didn't need all four of them, I could just click and drag these right off the canvas to make them go away. So that's how you get rid of them, in case you were wondering. And now I'm going to go through the rest of my slideshow, and I'm just going to make sure that this hole in the ground is in more or less the same spot, like it is where the guides are. So on this one, obviously, I need to grab my move tool, make sure auto select is checked right here. I'm going to move that so that it's right in that spot right there. I'm just going to move on to the next one and move it again. And I'm just going to keep going through my slides and moving this thing so that it's in more or less the same spot. Now here the tree is growing out of the hole, which means now where I want it to go is right there so that it's coming out of the hole. Again, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to leave that there. And I'm going to have to go through, I think, and move quite a few of these. But it doesn't take too long, and it's not that hard. So I'm just going to keep working on this, working my way through the slides, getting them lined up so that when they're all coming out of more or less the same spot. And if I go back and review now it looks a little bit better. I'm not trying to get them exactly perfect. Just trying to get them close to the same spot so that it's not bouncing around, being wildly inconsistent. So I'm going to keep working on this. You pause the video and go do it on your slideshow now. Okay, so I've got pretty far on here, and you can see that it looks much more natural now because the tree is coming out of the same spot and it's not bouncing around on the screen. That looks a lot better, and if you want to get an A on this project, you're going to need to go through your slides and clean them up like that. Get them nice and consistent. Let's talk about a couple other advanced techniques we can use to make our slideshow look awesome. Look at this slide right here. They accidentally included the person firing off the flash in this shot. I want to get rid of them, and so I'm going to grab my lasso tool and draw a selection around this person. And we've talked about this before, and you can see if I come in here and do Control L and move this over, it'll darken. But these bottom sliders, we don't use these on actual photos, but if I grab this one and I drag it in, it's going to make white things darker. If I drag this one in, it's going to make black things lighter. So I'll click on this and drag that in. You can see if I go far enough, eventually that light up there is going to disappear. And that's pretty handy. If I do the other way, it's going to make black things lighter. We don't want that, so let's not do that. But I'm going to bring this one over to make that light disappear, and then just go ahead and press OK, and then press Control D to make the selection go away. The problem is, though, if I zoom in, you can see right here along this edge, I've got a real hard edge. It's very abrupt where I've darkened it right there. And that doesn't look very good to me. And even though this clip is only going to be up for about 1/4 of a second, I still don't like it. I want this to blend in a little bit better. So I want to show you a trick for doing that. I'm going to Control-Alt-Z a couple times to get rid of that. And I'm going to go back, and now this time I'm going to draw my selection again with the lasso tool. But this time, before I do my levels, I'm going to right-click inside of it, and I'm going to choose Feather. And what Feather is going to do, if I put about a 15 for my feather radius in there, it's going to soften the edges of my selection. Let me show you what I mean by that. Let me go ahead and do that, and then I'll just do my Control-L, and I'll darken it down, and I'll bring this one in too. And then I'll click OK, and I'll press Control-D to make the selection go away. And now look at the edge of where I had my selection. It's a very soft edge. It kind of fades out, and it's not nearly as noticeable. There's no hard line like there was before. Let me show you what that looks like over here. I'm just going to draw a selection around this and do Control-T and shrink it down, just so you can see. If I don't feather the edge, that's what the edges look like. See, it's very abrupt. It's a very hard edge. If I do feather the edge, though, draw another one. This time I will feather. And this time I'll do Control-T and shrink it down. And see how it's much softer? It's a much gradual transition. Look at the difference between the two. By using the feather, it makes it much less obvious what I've done, and things blend together a little bit more. So use that if you're going to be darkening or lightening certain areas of your production and you want it to be a little less obvious. Use that feather tool, and again, right around 15 for the radius is about right where you want to be. All right, the last thing I want to show you in this video is what to do with the names at the end of your movie. If you just want to just leave them on the screen and not do anything fancy with them, that's fine. What I want you to do is just go through each name and change the duration to about 2.5, 3 seconds. So I'll put that at 2 seconds and 18 frames, and that's good. And I could go through and do that for all 4 of my names. And that way they're up on the screen long enough to be seen, but not long enough to be too long. And that's fine. If that's all you want to do, go for it. You're already going to get extra credit if you painted your names. But if you want extra credit, let me show you a really cool thing you can do to make your names look more awesome. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this first name. You can see it's light painting 55 over here in the layers palette. And I want to make about 10 copies of this. Actually, I want to make 9 copies so that I have 10 total. I'm not going to worry about the duration just yet, but I am going to duplicate this light painting 55 layer 9 times. And yesterday we talked about duplicating layers by right-clicking and pressing duplicate layer. But that's annoying because this box pops up and then I got to press OK. And that's way too much work. There's a much faster way in Photoshop. It's just Control-J on your keyboard, and you can see that automatically duplicated it. It gave it a new name. I'm just going to keep doing that until I've got a total of 10 of these light painting layers. And how I do, I've got light painting 55 all the way through copy 9. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come out here on my canvas. These are all in a row here. I'm going to go through each one, and I'm going to do Control-U on it. And I don't care what numbers you put in here or what adjustments you make, but I want you to add some color to it. Now, because this image is just white and black, you can see if I just adjust the saturation, nothing really happens. So in this case, I'm going to have to check the colorize box. And I always crank up the saturation to make that a little more obvious what I'm doing. And now I'll drag this, and now you can see some color change happening to it. It's kind of subtle, but let me crank up that saturation even more. And there we go. So I'm going to start at 0 and saturation of 100 on my first one. And then I'm going to go to my next one, and I'll do Control-U again. If it will show up, Control-U. There we go. And I'm going to go colorize 100. And this time I'm going to go, instead of 0, maybe I'll do 24. And press OK. Then I'm going to go to my next one. I do Control-U, colorize 100. And this time I'll do 50. And you can see what I'm doing is just slowly working my way across the hue slider so that when I'm done, when this actually plays, the colors of the name are going to change. Once I've done that to all 10 of them, I'm then going to go in and adjust the duration of all 10 to, again, be right around. Whoops, I'm going to need to zoom in on that to make this work. Where'd it go? There it is. It's right there. It's real tiny. I'm going to put that right around a duration of about 5 frames. 5 to 8 frames is fine. So again, I'd come to this one next. Bring this in. And stop it around 5 to 8 frames in my durations. And I want you to go through and do that for all the names in your movie. And if you do that, you will get extra credit. We're not quite done that, so let's save up our work. We'll do a little file save. And we should be able to wrap this project up in the next day.